This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israel bans U.S. Congresswomen Omar and Tlaib over their support of the BDS movement, then allows Tlaib a family visit, but Tlaib declines. And prophecy fulfilled again as more new immigrants arrive in the Jewish homeland. And take a one-of-a-kind boat ride on the Dead Sea. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended his government's decision to bar U.S. Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib because they support a movement to boycott the country. Tlaib was granted permission to visit her family in the West Bank, but she declined and said she couldn't come under the restrictions Israel put on her visit. The controversial ban put many leaders in the U.S. and Israel on opposite sides of the decision. And this is how Netanyahu defended his action. In a statement, he said, "As a free and vibrant democracy, Israel is open to critics and criticism, with one exception. Israeli law prohibits the entry into Israel of those who call for and work to impose boycotts on Israel, as do other democracies that prohibit the entry of people who seek to harm the country." U.S. President Trump had tweeted prior to Netanyahu's announcement.
I think it would show a terrible sign. They want to do boycotts. They said horrible things about Jewish people. They said horrible things about Israel and Israelis. I think it would be a terrible thing, frankly, for Israel to let these two people who speak so badly about Israel come in.
It was President Trump's tweet before the decision that many believe persuaded Netanyahu to bar the Congresswoman. Trump said that Israel would show great weakness if they allowed them in, even though a few weeks ago, Israel's ambassador to the U.S. said that Israel would allow Omar and Tlaib to come in out of respect for the U.S. Congress. Both Omar and Tlaib hit back at Netanyahu. Omar accused Netanyahu of imposing a ban on Muslim women and added the decision was an insult to democratic values. One reason Netanyahu said they barred Omar and Tlaib's trip was because it was sponsored by MIFTA, an organization that supports the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement and has called suicide bombers part of the resistance movement. U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman released a statement that noted 70 freshman members of Congress of both parties just completed a balanced visit to Israel, but said the Tlaib-Omar delegation had limited its exposure to tours organized by the most strident of BDS activists. Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu accused Friedman on Twitter of dual loyalty, an accusation considered by many to be anti-Semitic. He later apologized and deleted his tweet. Just days before the uproar over Omar and Tlaib, one of the largest ever bipartisan delegations from the U.S. House of Representatives came to visit Israel, and they presented a unified voice in support of the Jewish state. Those notably missing from the delegation were Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Presley, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, otherwise known as the Squad. All have been outspoken against Israel. Tlaib recently took to the House floor and compared a boycott on Israel to a boycott on Nazi Germany.
So I can't stand by and watch this attack on our freedom of speech and the right to boycott the racist policies of the government and the state of Israel. Americans boycotted Nazi Germany in response to dehumanization, imprisonment, and genocide of Jewish people.
Because of recent comments by Tlaib and Omar, it appears the U.S. State Department revised its definition of anti-Semitism that now includes drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer and Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy led the 41 Democratic and 31 Republican freshman representatives. They agreed if the Squad came with an open mind, they'd learn more about Israel.
If they do that, I think they will have a better understanding and better support for the interests of both the Israelis and the Palestinian people.
Anyone that comes with open ears, open eyes, and an open mind will walk away and have an understanding, just as all these members do, that this bond is unbreakable.
Despite their differences, the two leaders agree that on the whole, the two parties stand together on their support for Israel and the need to understand the challenges faced by the Jewish state.
72 members of Congress united in strong and unwavering support for the state of Israel, its success, its sovereignty, and its security.
CBN News sat down for an exclusive one-on-one with Minority Leader McCarthy. Several years ago, he started bringing Democratic and Republican members together in Israel.
I wanted to have some overlapping because I don't want the debate about Israel to be partisan. And it seems so many times what's happening, especially in this new Democratic Party, it's becoming divided within the own Democratic Party. And so that's why this is a very good time that we come together, because we have no greater ally, no stronger bond than America with Israel. But unfortunately, this new Democratic Party has been making that a real challenge.
We sat down with Leader McCarthy and asked him what he thought of the growing anti-Semitism. Leader McCarthy, thanks for joining us on CBN News. What are your concerns about the anti-Semitic comments?
Anti-Semitism has been growing, that we have not seen it around the world except in the 1930s. And then I watched the debate even in Congress this year. Now, in the minority, there's not very many options that we can bring legislation to the floor, but in that one ability too, we made sure we passed a bill about anti-Semitism, and it was challenging to get the Democrats in the right place. And then you have this boycott, divestiture, and sanctions, BDS. You had the U.S. Senate make that their #1 bill. Not only did they pass it, Chuck Schumer not only voted for it, he co-sponsored it, but it's yet to come up in the House. That is a new challenge we have not seen in the past, and that's what we're trying to overcome. And that's why I'm very hopeful having people spend time here. They will understand the importance, not just of Israel to America, but to the world, to have the only democracy in the Middle East, to have such a diversity, but also to learn from the past, that you do not let anti-Semitism grow. You do not foster it. You combat it and you stand up to it the moment you see it and hear it.
Well, from anti-Semitism to prophecy, nearly 250 new immigrants saw their dreams come true when they arrived in Israel. And many see their arrival as a prophetic fulfillment of when God said he would gather his people to the promised land from the four corners of the world. After a 10-hour flight, with some waiting and planning the trip for years, these Olim, or new immigrants, set foot on the promised land. The arrivals come from 22 states, 2 Canadian provinces, and include 103 children, 3 sets of twins, and a 28-day-old baby.
This is a great situation for the state of Israel, that 240 Jews from North America arrive in Israel here, and we are very proud to have them as students, as soldiers, as partners in the state of Israel.
Nefesh B'Nefesh organized this arrival, a milestone for the organization.
60,000 Olim, our 60th charter flight. It's as glorious as the first flight. Seeing people fulfill their dreams, coming home, it's remarkable.
The first time, the first person is just as important and just as exciting as the 60,000th person right now.
This brother and sister reunited after 2 years.
I don't know, I'm overjoyed. Like, it's so weird. I've been here like alone and now I have my brother. It's amazing.
And families made the journey.
It's just one of the most amazing feelings in the world to be able to come to our homeland, to be part of the state of Israel, the Jewish homeland that we've always dreamed of being a part of.
Is this a dream come true?
Absolutely, absolutely.
We are living the dream.
David is the nephew of Yechiel Eckstein, who brought thousands of Jews to the land of Israel and passed away recently. Beryl is Yechiel's brother.
I miss my brother being here, but he's here. And I know that he would have been the first one to greet David. He loved him so much.
For the Ecksteins and many other families making Aliyah, it's about the generations.
We're so proud of them to make this decision at this stage in their life, to come back home where my father was born, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and now this generation's coming home.
It's also about the Bible coming to life.
It's about the ingathering of the exiles, bringing the Jewish people home. But it's not even for me. It's not even because of the fulfillment of prophecies that I'm so happy. It's because my family is coming home. And we're all together finally. And when we're all together in our land, that brings the most light to the whole world.
For these new arrivals, the Israel adventure is just beginning. Coming up, CBN's Scott Ross visits Hebron.
This is the area that has been described as a ghost town.
Well, fighting and hatred, Israeli occupation and oppression. That's the way the mainstream media and politicians often portray the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But CBN's Scott Ross traveled to biblical Hebron and found the reality on the ground can be very different.
Hebron is home to the Cave of the Patriarchs, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their wives are buried. Hebron in Hebrew and Al-Khalil in Arabic both come from the root word meaning friend. But that's far from this city's image. At times it's been a hotbed of terrorism, but that's not the whole story. Yishai, this is the area that has been described as a ghost town. Everything is boarded up, closed down. Why?
In 1994, it was decided by the Israeli army that they had to close the stores. There's still Arabs living here. What was happening is that terrorists used the mass of people that was walking here to hide themselves and to perpetrate attacks. Now, it's not a beautiful sight, but the Arabs that had the stores here were moved to the much more Arab part of town. They were compensated.
Yishai Fleischer is spokesman for the Jewish community here.
And there's always two wars. There's a physical war, and the physical war was stopped. But exactly where the physical war was stopped, the narrative war was created and started. What do I mean by that? Well, I deal with a lot of media here. And what they want to do is they want to capture one shot here. The Israeli army next to closed stores, and if they could catch a kid with Jewish sidelocks, then they have exactly the story, which is the settlers are using the IDF, the Israeli army, to ethnically cleanse Hebron.
Climb to the top of this building and you get an entirely different view. Stretching for miles, Hebron houses about 200,000 Arab residents. As the most prosperous city in the Palestinian-controlled West Bank, it's also home to about 1,200 Jews.
Here, for example, is what some of the propaganda that an organization
Ghost town, Israel's separation policy, forced eviction of Palestinians from the center of Hebron. That's not true.
Well, it's true on one street, right? One tiny little street. But the rest of Hebron is actually the wealthiest, most successful of all Arab cities here, one of the most successful cities in the whole Middle East.
Are there businesses here? Big business?
There's 17,000 businesses and factories here. In fact, this is an ironic truth. Basically, there's 5 billion shekels of exports from Hebron, from Arab Hebron to Israel every year.
Even with the commercial ties, relations are mixed. The Arabs that live here don't want you here.
There are many Arabs who think that way. Those are those who have succumbed to the jihadist ideology. Yeah. It's important to know that there are many other Arabs who think that the Palestinian Authority is corrupt, that jihad is not good for their kids, that they don't want this life. They don't want this life for their children, and in fact see Israel as actually a great vision for their future.
One aspect often ignored and even denied is the Jewish people's ancient connection to Hebron.
That conflict is over who's got rights to this land, who's going to hold on to this land.
Right, and Hebron goes back biblically how many thousands of years?
Well, it goes about 3,800 years.
38.
And the whole book of Genesis gets sealed off here in Hebron. When Jacob is dying down in Egypt, he says to his children, don't bury me here in Egypt, bury me back in Hebron, where Abraham and Sarah are buried, where Isaac and Rebekah are buried, and where I buried Leah.
The story is under the building. These stairs that we're looking at are 4,500 years old?
But this is really 700 years before Abraham. And Abraham is going to walk up here and he's going to negotiate with the Hittites to buy the tombs of the father and mother, actually a cave at the field at the far end of town. Our enemies understand the spiritual significance and the anchoring of this history to our peoplehood. So their whole effort right now is to somehow undo that connection. And one of the ways that they have done that is with the usage of international organizations like UNESCO.
2 years ago, a United Nations agency declared the cave an endangered Palestinian heritage site. What's the future? What do you see?
There's a big question about what's going to be the future of the Palestinian Authority. There used to be, about 100 years ago, something called the Jewish question. Now we know the Jewish people are back in Israel, and they're going to be in Israel. I think now there's an Arab question. What's going to be with the Arab peoples? Are they going to figure out a way to deal with their cousins, the Jews? Or are they going to keep calling us occupiers and foreigners and going to continue this 100-year war, which has not really fared very well for them? Because I think the Jewish people are here to stay.
Scott Ross in Hebron.
Up next, take a one-of-a-kind ride on the Dead Sea that's in danger of disappearing and hear from the people who want to save it. The Dead Sea is a natural wonder that is actually giving life, but this unique jewel is in danger of drying up. 2 years ago, we took a boat ride on the Dead Sea. Even after last year's rainy winter, the sea is worse than ever. Take a look.
Sunrise over the Dead Sea, a soothing atmosphere, biblical landmark, and mineral treasure. It sits on the Great Rift Valley between Israel and Jordan. Fed by fresh water from the Jordan River and mineral springs, it's one of the saltiest lakes in the world. So salty, no fish can survive in it. Nominated as one of the 7 wonders of the world, the water, mud, and atmosphere have healing properties. But all this could disappear. The Dead Sea is dropping at a rate of 5 to 8 feet a year. This blue chair marks where the shoreline was just 4 years ago. That means the lowest point on Earth is getting even lower.
The reason is very, very simple. On one hand, there is all the time evaporation of water and the surface is very large. On the other hand, good water from the upper Jordan were taken for irrigation, to develop agriculture, to develop food for the people, and they stopped reaching the Dead Sea. So the balance has changed.
Hebrew University professor Avner Adin says there's only one way to restore the sea.
What could save the Dead Sea is actually pouring water into the Dead Sea.
Adin told CBN News a combination of solutions is the only way to help.
One way, which is the natural one, meaning let the rivers flow into it. Don't take the water from the Jordan, from the other rivers. Let it come back to its natural way. The other way is artificial, meaning making the Red to Dead Sea project come true.
Israel and Jordan signed the Red Dead Agreement to make a 140-mile canal from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. The billion-dollar project begins with a desalination plant to provide much-needed water and power to Jordan, then would drop the remainder of the water in the Dead Sea.
Another way that in parallel could be done would be to take water from the Mediterranean and desalinate this water and give this water for drinking and for agriculture instead of taking the water from the Lake of Galilee and from the streams.
But Adin said it's not easy to get governments invested in saving it. That's why activists like Jacob Ben Zaken and Noam Bedin are sounding the alarm.
I want to see the Dead Sea restored.
Ben Zaken from a nearby kibbutz gives the only boat ride available on the Dead Sea.
The purpose is to bring awareness to the Dead Sea, to the beauty, to everything that's going on, including the disappearing of the Dead Sea and the way to save it.
And it's working. Over a year ago, photojournalist Bedin took the boat tour.
And that touched me as an Israeli to speak up for this enchanted, prehistorical, biblical place, to stand up for it.
These salty pillars or chimneys may be stunning, but their appearance signals trouble. Bedin's photos show the drop in the water level in just 1 year.
I've been documenting this one-of-a-kind place like never before, going on this boat ride over a period of time and documenting the beauty, the magic of this place with the purpose to educate the next generation of this one-of-a-kind place, but also showing the dramatic changes that this place has been taking.
The drop has also caused huge sinkholes to open up along the shore, forcing beaches to close and a nearby road to collapse. The Dead Sea is a favorite tourist destination. It's so salty you can't sink, only float. But there's much more. In the Bible, a young David hid in the nearby caves of En-Gedi. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in the Qumran caves, giving us the oldest manuscripts of the Bible. And the Dead Sea is actually giving life. The waters and air at the Dead Sea have special healing properties for skin and other ailments. And mineral mining yields potash, a key element for fertilizer used in agriculture to feed the world. According to a dean, the Dead Sea is like a very special diamond that needs to be preserved.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.